Welcome to an InOrbit Deep Dive podcast. The following AI-generated podcast explores InOrbit, the industry's leading AI-powered cloud-based data platform for effectively managing and orchestrating growing robot fleets. InOrbit makes robots from different vendors, smart infrastructure, and existing control or management systems work together. With InOrbit, you get comprehensive observability, incident review, and data analytics. To learn more about InOrbit and the power of robot operations, visit us online at inorbit.ai. Now on to the podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're jumping headfirst into the world of robot operations.
RobOps.
RobOps. Exactly. We've got a fascinating company to explore today, InOrbit. They're all about making sure robots are doing their jobs and doing them well.
But it's not as easy as it sounds.
Definitely not, especially when you've got whole fleets of these things running around in warehouses, fulfillment centers, you name it. It's like, how do you even keep track of them all?
That's the core of what InOrbit tackles. They give you the tools to monitor and manage all these robots, no matter who made them or what they're doing. Like, think of a conductor for an orchestra, but for robots.
I like that analogy. And to make things even more interesting, InOrbit recently joined forces with NVIDIA and Omniverse. Big names, big implications.
Huge. This partnership is all about bringing simulations into the RobOps world.
Okay, simulations. We're talking virtual robots, virtual environments, the whole 9 yards.
Precisely. InOrbit already had a strong platform for managing real robots, but now they can create virtual copies of everything and experiment without real-world consequences.
That's got to be a game changer.
Absolutely. It's like having a testing ground where you can try out different strategies, optimize performance, all before you let the robots loose in the real world.
And speaking of virtual environments, we have to talk about NVIDIA Sim. This is next-level stuff.
Way on me.
It's powered by NVIDIA Omniverse, and it lets InOrbit create these incredibly detailed, realistic simulations. We're not talking simple shapes moving around anymore. These simulations can be almost indistinguishable from reality.
Whoa, okay. So back in the day, robot simulations were, like those little robots you could program to move around a maze? Now we're talking photorealism. What does that even look like in practice? Think about it this way. In the real world, robots encounter all sorts of unexpected things, like a box in the wrong place or glare from a window, little things that can throw them off. But with these realistic simulations, InOrbit can train robots to handle those situations before they happen in the real world.
It's like a robot boot camp. And speaking of InOrbit's approach, they're big on something called real-to-sim.
Right. It's all about using real-world data to fuel the simulations. So they're capturing everything those robots experience, from their movements to their sensor readings. It's a constant feedback loop.
So the virtual robots are learning from their real-world counterparts. That makes sense. But how detailed are we talking here?
Very detailed. InOrbit's capturing the full 3D paths the robots take, the data from their cameras, you name it. That way, the simulations are as close to real life as possible.
That's pretty impressive. And it all feeds into InOrbit's robot space, right?
Exactly. They've actually got a physical robot space in Silicon Valley, and then its digital twin powered by Sim.
So a real-world testing ground and a virtual one. That's got to be valuable for working out the kinks.
Absolutely. It lets them test and refine robot behavior in both environments, making sure they're ready for anything.
Okay, so we've got real robots feeding data to virtual robots, all happening in this incredibly detailed simulation. Where do we go from there?
That's where things get really interesting. We'll talk about that next time when we explore the concept of sim to real and how InOrbit is using it to push the boundaries of robot capabilities.
All right, cliffhanger. Can't wait to dive back in.
See you then.
Until next time.
So last time we left off with this idea of real to sim, right? Real robots feeding data into the simulation.
Right, like a constant stream of intel from the front lines.
Exactly. And all that data is used to create these incredibly detailed virtual environments powered by NVIDIA Sim.
Okay, I'm picturing this super realistic virtual world. What happens there? How does sim to real come into play?
Well, let's say you've got those delivery robots we were talking about, and you notice a pattern of delays happening at a certain intersection.
Okay, got to optimize those delivery times.
For sure. Now, with InOrbit's time capsule feature, you can basically rewind time and see exactly what happened at that intersection from the robot's perspective.
Wait, so it's a DVR for robots?
Kind of. You can go back and analyze the robot's movements, its sensor readings, the whole thing. And you might discover that the robots are having trouble with pedestrian traffic or something.
Makes sense. People can be unpredictable.
Right. So now you take that problem intersection and you recreate it in NVIDIA Isaac Sim. And remember, the simulation's got all that real-world data feeding into it, so it's super accurate.
So it's like a virtual test track for robots.
Exactly. And this is where sim to real comes in. You can experiment with different solutions in the simulation, like maybe you tweak the robot's navigation algorithms, or you try a different approach to pedestrian detection.
And all of this happens in the safety of the virtual world.
Right, no real-world crashes or delays. You can test out all sorts of crazy ideas.
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So once you find a solution that works in the simulation, what then?
Then comes the magic. With InOrbit, you can take those changes and deploy them to the real robots out in the field. Just like that.
No way.
Yeah.
So the virtual robots are basically training the real ones.
You got it. It's this constant loop of learning and improvement, all thanks to that connection between simulation and reality.
Like robots are leveling up in a video game or something.
Kind of. And that's what's so exciting about this partnership between InOrbit and NVIDIA. They're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of robotics.
And all of this is powered by that incredible level of detail we were talking about earlier, right?
Absolutely. Without that level of realism, the simulations wouldn't be nearly as effective. Think about it. If you were training for a big race,
Yeah.
would you rather practice on a simple treadmill or on a course that mimics the actual terrain and conditions of the race?
Definitely the realistic course. Got to get used to the bumps and hills and stuff.
Exactly. It's the same with robots. The more realistic the simulation, the better prepared they'll be for the real world.
So we've talked a lot about delivery robots, but what other industries could benefit from this whole sim-to-real thing?
Oh, tons of them. Think about manufacturing, for example. Robots are already doing a lot of heavy lifting in factories.
Right, those big robotic arms and things.
Exactly. But simulations could help optimize their movements, making production lines even more efficient.
And faster. Time is money, right?
Absolutely. And you could even use simulations to design entirely new factories, figuring out the optimal layout and workflow before you ever break ground.
So it's not just about improving existing robots, it's about designing better systems from the ground up.
Right. And this all feeds into the idea of making robots more helpful, more capable, more integrated into our lives.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because as robots become more advanced, it raises all sorts of questions about their role in society.
Totally. We'll dive into some of those bigger questions next time when we wrap up our exploration of InOrbit and the future of RobOps.
Okay, looking forward to it. Back again. And wow, what a journey it's been, right?
It's mind-blowing stuff, honestly.
No kidding. We've gone from managing real robots to building virtual worlds and back again.
And that's the key, isn't it? That loop between the real and the sim.
Totally. InOrbit and NVIDIA, they've really created something special here.
They have. And InOrbit's time capsule, that's like a game changer for analysis.
It is. Imagine being able to rewind a robot's mission, see exactly where things went wrong.
Exactly. And not just see it, understand it. And then you can take that knowledge, apply it back to the simulation, test out solutions.
So much faster, so much safer.
Precisely. And, it's not just about fixing problems. It's about pushing the limits of what robots can do. With these simulations, the possibilities are endless.
Totally. We've focused a lot on delivery robots, but I could see this technology being huge in other industries too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, you name it. Anywhere you've got robots working, this real-to-sim, sim-to-real loop can make a difference.
It's like giving robots a superpower. The power of constant learning and improvement.
And, it's not just the robots that are learning. We are, too. We're learning how to build better robots, how to integrate them into our world more effectively.
It's a collaboration, really. Humans and robots working together.
Yeah. And I think that's important to remember. As robots become more advanced, it's easy to get caught up in the fear factor.
Oh, yeah, the whole robots taking over the world thing.
Exactly. But this isn't about replacing humans. It's about augmenting our abilities, making us more productive, more efficient, and ultimately freeing us up to focus on the things that make us uniquely human.
The creative stuff, the problem solving, the big picture thinking.
Exactly. So yeah, the robots are coming, but I think that's a good thing, a really good thing, if we approach it the right way.
Couldn't agree more. This has been an incredible deep dive. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine.
For everyone listening, keep those minds curious, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. Until then, take care.
We hope you enjoyed this InOrbit podcast. Visit us online at InOrbit.ai to learn how we make robots work. And contact us anytime at team@InOrbit.ai. This AI-generated podcast was created using Google's Notebook LM. Thanks for listening.